Hello, this is Liverpool's Greatest, where we will reveal who you voted as the very best player this great club has ever seen. You're probably well aware that over the last 35 days, the countdown has been on. Just the 823 players that have played at least one game for Liverpool, and there have been some proper legends in there as well.
Towards Hansen! Can he score his fourth? It looks as though he has, yes! He's got Beardsley going to his left and still Barnes! That's a fabulous individual goal! Across the face of the goal! Keep on! It's the goal!
Yeah, just a little taster about some of the legendary players we've seen and enjoyed across the years, and hopefully you've been following the countdown across our web and social platforms. We reached number 6 on Thursday. That was Graham Souness, and today the top 5 will be revealed right here. It's already caused big debate, probably amongst your group of mates as well. People demanding to know who's responsible for it. Well, we can tell you exactly how the vote was done. Here's the explainer from website editor Chris Shaw.
Thanks, Pete. Yeah, who on earth made this Liverpool's greatest list? That's a question some have been asking over the past month as we counted down from number 100. Whether you disagreed with an inclusion or a ranking or got caught by a fake result. Just to be completely clear, Alisson did not finish in 92nd place. The answer to the question is, well, we all created this list. We began with a massive statistical model that ranked every single player to have made an appearance for the club. We invited fans then to choose their top 25 players from a long list of 250. We asked for votes to be made on the basis of 4 factors: ability, impact, legacy and success. For some, ability was the all-important metric. For others, legacy and success mattered more. For many, it was a really difficult balancing act of considering all 4 of those things. The 1.4 million picks by supporters were combined with those stats, and also selections from former players, journalists and an LFC panel. What emerged from all of that totting up gave us this top 100. It's not definitive. Everyone will have their opinions and their own favourites. It's a celebration and a reminder of the depth of quality and achievement, the greatness we've been fortunate to witness over the years at Liverpool. And it's certainly got us all talking, at least. At the very least, hopefully that clears up the questions that you might have about the panel. They will be closely guarded, those judges as well, for their own safety. But let's introduce you to the people that we have in the room, all faces that you will know if you watch us regularly as well. We've got James Pearce and Paul Gorst here, Mo Stewart and Neil Atkinson behind me, and of course our former Liverpool players in the form of Sammy Lee, John Barnes and Lucas Leiva as well. Opta Mike is going to be on the big screen behind us as well, with some of the stats and figures that have gone behind what is a really important ranking here as well. So as we heard Chris say, the votes were based on ability, impact, legacy and success. So what would you guys rank as the most important attribute? Let's start with you, Paul, first of all.
Maybe success. You know, you look at what a player has done over the course of however number of years they were at the club and what they walk away with on their honours list at the end of the career. But like Chris explained in the video, you know, you can have your own opinion on what you view as the most important metric, but you know, success is what I guess every footballer will tell you they're looking for at the end of their career and what is on their CV, I guess.
Sammy, you played with most of them, coached most of them as well. Is there something that springs to mind with you as to what the most important ingredient in that cake would be?
I've ruined a few of them as well, just to let you know that. I couldn't give you one of them. I think all 4 are crucial to make this decision. You know, you say success, but I think legacy is huge, you know, because in every football club, they're not always as successful as Liverpool Football Club. We just happen to be very, very fortunate that we're part of a very, very very, very successful football club. So I think all 4 of them ingredients will go into me making my decision ultimately, but it's still a very, very hard decision to make, I feel.
Neil?
I think that legacy is sort of a key part of it, because I think it's not... What's hard is that a player can have misfortune at what point he plays. I think number 11 was Billy Liddell, for instance, who scores a lot of goals for Liverpool in Division 2, pre-Shankly. So how exactly do you judge that? But, you know, what was said about Liddell, and obviously I never saw him play, he was my granddad's favourite player, was that he carried the club for 5-10 years, that the club may well have gone up, sunk even further if it wasn't for what Liddell offered. But he does not walk away with any major honour other than the one that he wins in 1947. So you end up in this, when he was a younger player, so you end up in this situation there. Well, how do you judge that? What do you judge that against? And I think that bearing that in mind, you know, one of the things I like about the list and the care that's been put into the list is we do have to remember the players who played pre-Shankly, because the football club has been going since 1892, and there are some names that shouldn't disappear. It was good to see Alex Raisbeck in the top 50 in amongst all of that. So I think that stuff does matter. So you've got to try to judge these factors, because, you know, at some point we hope there's still a Liverpool Football Club in 100 years' time, and I want the names that then people might not have seen in person to still be talked about and still be referenced. So that legacy and how it echoes down, I think, is really important.
And of course, that is the beauty of all of this, that list could change across the years as well. Scoring goals is the game, what the game is all about, and we would all argue, I think, that it's the most difficult thing to do as well. Let's look at the top 5 image then, shall we, of the 5 that we have to fill. And of course, the one of the 5 is in the studio with us as well. He's dying to get in on this as well.
I am dying to get in on this, because obviously it's people of a particular age who will remember that, and then, as has already been alluded to, you have players who have had a much bigger impact, a much bigger legacy, who would not be remembered. So when you talk about how we're going to judge this criteria, what is ability? A right back who's a fantastic player, who has played. If you want to, and I will just say this, you look at Phil Neal, in terms of 6 years without missing a game, 4 European Cups. How many? He's the most decorated player. I'm sure he's not in the top 10. Now, if you talk about legacy, that's also objective in terms of what is a legacy. Luis Suarez, that's a great legacy. Ability, what is ability? Yes, you have skillful players, and I suppose from my perspective, that's why they voted for me, because I had tight shorts on, you know, and had a bit of rhythm. And they never seen that in Liverpool before. and they never seen that in Liverpool before. When I came to Liverpool and, you know, in the nightclubs, of course, when you got Sammy and people like that, I just brought a new kind of vibe to Liverpool. That's why I'm in the top 5, as well as obviously the rhythm I had. So, but in terms of what I actually won, I didn't win as much as so many of the Liverpool players. So it is very objective. And this is why I have a particular thing about ability. So when we talk about ability, and Ian Rush is going to come up now, my biggest thing I can say about Ian Rush is what he did when he was not scoring goals, how hard he worked for the team. Yeah. Forget about his goals. You have people who made score better. In fact, Robbie Fowler, for me, is the best goal scorer Liverpool have had. Headers, tap-ins, dribbling. But what Rushy does when he's not scoring puts him ahead of everybody else for me. I'm not saying he's the greatest goal scorer. So I look at football in a different way. People just look at it from an eye-catching point of view, and he's a great player, he's a great player. Sammy's favourite player, Graham Souness. He's not in the top 5, but I know Sammy loves Graham Souness. Ronnie Whelan, people like that, you know, and that's why the unsung heroes like Lucas may not be in the top 10, but in terms of what they actually give the club, for me, is what this is all about. So I don't like this individual award, but thanks for putting me in the top 5.
I was going to say, the thing that jumps out at me from that top 5 is longevity as well, because all of those 5 spent a long, long time at Liverpool. I think loyalty is a big thing as well when I was thinking about who I was going to put at the top, because I think, you know, Barnsley mentions like Luis Suarez. I think if he'd stay around longer, then he would be, you know, in that conversation. But he was only a Liverpool player for 3.5 years. So yeah, I think that loyalty and longevity is important.
That's why the 4 factors. Cologne. The 4 factors are crucial in all of them, and I think having them 4 principles, factors, what you said before, enables us to make our decision. But I don't think it can just be one of them. For me, it's got to be a combination of the 4.
I also think it's important to how you represent us as a football club. I think we pride ourselves on how much of a family we are, how much we all adore this club, and the values that are within this club. So for me, a lot of these legends are also based on how you represented us off the football pitch, as well as how you represented on the football pitch. Did you understand what it was to be a Liverpool fan? Did you understand what it meant to represent us and represent the badge? And if you do, then for me, that also puts you on a higher pedestal than someone else who might have been a flashier player, but maybe just didn't represent me in the way that I wanted to be represented as a football fan. Very valid point, and I think, you know.
Barnes mentioned something that is really important. You know, my time at Liverpool, you know, I was here for 10 years. it was a very difficult period. We won just a League Cup, which, if you look at the success, we didn't have much, but I see a lot of players that sticked here in the difficult time. And when you see now Liverpool winning, for sure something that we built there, of course, with the arrival of Jurgen and Van Dijk and these kind of guys. So it's I think Liverpool is more than just a trophy. That's how I felt staying here for 10 years. So it's more about the family as well, and the legacy that you leave, and especially in difficult moments, stay and stick together and build something for the future, even though you're not gonna be involved, but in some way you're gonna be involved then as a supporter, like I was when I left, and looking the guys lifting the trophy, the Champions League trophy especially, and the Premier League.
That's a relay race. Sorry, Mo, just it's a relay race. I'm really pleased you made that point, because I always remember the running of the 16-17 season where we got Champions League qualification. You were part of what dragged that team over the line. It wasn't playing well. They were all exhausted. You were the senior player at that point. Liverpool get the points they need. If they didn't qualify for the Champions League the following season, you don't get Kiev. If you don't get Kiev, you don't get Madrid. And that is a great example of the fact that it is a relay race, it is a journey from one to the other. And just because you left in the summer of 17, well, you were still part of what happens that follows. You had to have been, because you were part of what qualified them. And I think that remembering that and certainly the three gentlemen we've got here, that everyone passes it along.
Yeah.
And I love the way the former players interact with each other and understand that they're all part of that journey, because we get to have it as fans. But I think it's brilliant that the players understand that they've had that as well, just in a different way, that it is a relay race and we pass it along.
I think that's why it's important to look at the impacts, because when we think of impacts initially, we think of, well, how influential were they on in the teams that they were in? But Lucas's experience is a really good example of the fact that sometimes your impact goes beyond when you've left the club. Like you say, it's setting the team up for the next generation, for the next evolution of the team. But also, in terms of success, you can have great impacts as a player being the one who nods the goal in or makes a goal line tackle. But you can also have great impacts being part of a consistent group, helping that group be able to achieve again and again consistently. So I think impact is probably the thing that I'm looking at most, and it does kind of come into all of the other categories as well.
And that's a very valid point, because the thing, success doesn't come overnight, apart from obviously the Leicester thing, which you came from nowhere. But I say people who have legacy, Lucas being part of the building up for what was going to come in the 2, 3, 4 seasons afterwards, crucial, because this club is built on foundations, and we know who started all for me with the great Bill Shankly, and that's where it came from there, and we're all part of that, and I think it's crucial, as was alluded to before, is the fact that people have over not just that initial period, but the period that's coming ahead, and normally it's, as you say, you said, Neil, it's like a relay, cyclical, but thankfully we've been a consistent part of that cycle more often than not with success.
But the difficulty for me in talking about ever is that you have to go through the generations, because of course you go through the generation, look at players who are the main players of this particular generation, that particular generation. So when you talk about ever, it depends on when you're playing, the team you're actually playing in, and more importantly for me, you think about someone like Steven Gerrard, for example, who I'm sure is in the top 5, the impact Steven Gerrard had. Would Steven Gerrard have had that same impact if he was playing with Kenny Dalglish, Graham Souness, Alan Hansen and these great players? He still would have been a great player, but his impact would have been diminished because he would have been part of a great team. When you are a player who's playing in a team whereby you are the main player, then you're going to have that impact. You will get probably more praise than someone who won 4 European Cups like Phil Neal, for example. So Stephen, for me, is obviously in the top 5 without a shadow of a doubt. But I don't think his impact on Liverpool Football Club as an individual would have been as great if he was playing with Dalglish, Souness, Rush, Hansen and people like that. He still would have been like them, but I think that because he was playing in a team where it was all about him, he then was elevated into this, which he still is, for me, one of the top 2 players anyway. But I think that had he been in a team with them, he would have been part of a great team, actually helped that team, but he wouldn't have been head and shoulders above everyone, as he is now.
I think Lois just made a great point, sorry Pete, about how these players represent the club. You look at someone like Steven Gerrard, who was the captain for best part of 10, 12, nearly 15 years, wasn't he? And then Kenny Dalglish, whose impact is immeasurable, really, off the pitch, isn't it, as much as on. Someone like Mo Salah, 9 years, could have went somewhere else during that time, but stuck with the club and raised it up to European champions, Premier League champions. So it's not necessarily about simply what you're doing on the pitch. It's how you're viewed to this fan base, who, as we've seen from the number of votes, it spreads all around the world, doesn't it? So it's not necessarily just what you do on the pitch. It's about your wider impact, I guess.
Today's about revealing the top 5 in what order, because everybody will have an opinion on that, and the key components as well. Longevity in that. If you've ever spent any time with Sammy Lee, you will know that Ian Callaghan is his ultimate number 1, but this is the list of all appearances which you'll be quite familiar with. But Jamie Carragher only came in at 23rd, which might surprise you. Of our top 5, Steven Gerrard leads the way with 710, Rushy on 660. Which is incredible. If Sammy could have a poster up in his house, it would be of Ian Callaghan.
I do have. Don't tell Callaghan.
I would as well. I would as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But not only the longevity, Pete. I've got to talk about. I think one of the components of success. He's won everything.
Yeah.
He's won everything with this football club, and still one of the only surviving World Cup members. So. Yeah,
But when he talks about, and I'll mention Ian Callaghan here, and I'm sure a lot of people know this, but just in case you don't, he talks about the impact you actually had on the community and what it did in the community. Ian Callaghan would tell you when he made his debut, he went to the bus stop to queue up with the fans. Yeah. And he got on the bus with the fans to go, and after the game, he went back to the county road. He lives in the Dingle, where he used to live, and he just got on the bus with fans. When he talk about a relationship with the community and being part of a team, we're not going to do that now. I wouldn't do that, but I wouldn't do that. But when you talk about the harmony and the family spirit that Liverpool engenders, Ian Callaghan for me epitomises all of that, as well as being successful.
Boots in brown paper, as the story goes, that were wrapped in, and the front of the queue moved and said, better let this fella on because he's playing today. It's an incredible story, isn't it? Win percentages as well should maybe be a deciding factor. Mo and Kenny lead the way where that is concerned as well. We will be checking in with Opta Mike as we go on that as well. How important, Mike, is that win percentage thing when maybe you are putting a list like this together?
I think John made a great point there that it also depends on the team that you're playing with. So Gerrard, for example, is a little lower than the other members of the top 5, but he played in a less successful era of Liverpool in terms of winning titles. So what I've done here is look at players with the longevity, so 400 or more appearances, and we can see that Salah and Dalglish come out on top. Salah the only one above 60% at 62.4%, Dalglish at 59.8%, and the others in the list were either a teammate of Dalglish or a teammate of Salah in Jordan Henderson, Whelan and Grobbelaar. They all played with Dalglish of all, so they were part of that both part of incredibly successful eras of Liverpool, so that contributes. But you can see those two players are out on top in terms of the impact they had in terms of just directly winning games with the team, and that does speak volumes for them, I think, as players, as because they were so influential in very successful Liverpool teams, but they were in particular part of the most successful key components of that team, really.
Lots of stats and figures coming from Mike, not just from Opta's archive, but also from his own personal archive as well. Some crackers in there, but we're not going to keep you hanging on for the big first of our reveals. Let's dim the lights and turn to the screen and find out who's come in at number 5.
Beardsley going to his left and still Bonds. That's a fabulous individual goal. Oh my word! It looks a goal. United are being caught out here. Will they be punished? They are by John Barnes.
John Barnes on a feeling. Gets over the fullback. Now at Evans on his left foot.
We ought to be with the cross line for Liverpool. Oh, that's quite brilliant. A terrific equaliser from John Barnes. John Barnes. Nicely done, John Barnes. Oh, yes. Goal to aim at. Is it going to go in? Oh, brilliantly.
We enjoyed that. 108 goals, 102 assists in 407 games, 2 league titles, twice voted Footballer's Rightest Player of the Year. John is at number 5.
Lucas was just talking about these goals with the right foot. I said that's the only way I was going to score, because playing on the left, you've got to come in and shoot with the right foot. I mean, now you don't. Now everybody left-footed plays on the left, plays on the right. The right-footed players play, on the left to come in and score goals. But football was different then, because I think that when you had classical centre forwards who needed to get crosses in and the fullbacks defended, whereas now any left-footed player plays on the other side, right-footed players, and you get the width from the fullback. So I was just playing at the wrong time, wasn't I?
It's very rare that someone with a left foot has that percentage of goals with his right, because they are more predominantly left-footed. Fantastic with it, but to score that many goals to percentage, it was nearly 50%.
Close your eyes and swing.
I did that on a number of occasions.
He makes it sound simple. James, you and I are a similar age. The queues around the block on a Saturday afternoon when games used to kick off at 3 o'clock were all to see this fella. There's no greater sight in football at that time.
No, he was absolutely majestic in his prime, wasn't he? Box office, got you off your seat. Just a delight to watch when you think that the impact he made arriving from Watford in '87, and you know it was like an evolution of Liverpool, wasn't it? Because of course you had Aldo had come in not long before, Peter Beardsley, of course, Ray Houghton, and part of one of the greatest Liverpool teams I've ever seen.
World's best player for me at one stage towards the late part of the 1980s, man.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a shame you never got to see him play in European Cups, because I think if he had done, then that conversation would go beyond the Liverpool fans into European and world fans. Just an incredible footballer. I mean, I've said this to John before, and he always gives me a weird look, but he is the reason
as well as a tenor.
He's the reason I'm here. He's the reason I became a Liverpool fan. He's the reason I moved to the city. That was the big bang for me in terms of my connection with this club.
I know you're a young lady. I can know why you moved to Liverpool. So I know you're trying to praise me, but there are other reasons.
That is legacy, though, isn't it? I mean, these are the things that 1.4 million people voted on. Plenty more who won't have voted that are watching the show today. These lads change people's lives.
Absolutely, they did. I think there's a whole generation of people my age who all have a similar story. I know because I've spoken to so many people whenever we've had this conversation. But sometimes someone just stands out, and think about the amount of football that was on TV back in that time. Because obviously I wasn't living in Liverpool, so we were desperate to get any football we get on TV, and so when it was on TV and you had someone playing like he did, it sticks in your memory. There's just the freedom which he was able to beat players, was able to do apparently whatever he wanted. It's always stuck with me.
Neil?
I think it's, I think John himself will always be modest and remember he was part of a great team and he added to that great team, but I think he just gave it such a focus to go to another level. But I think then what John himself went on and did later in his career, because I think this stuff matters. A lot of my favourite players are ones who end up having to change the way they play and then give more to the team. So I think that's the case of all these three gentlemen who are here, but also someone like Ronnie Whelan, who, if you remember, John comes in and effectively takes Ronnie's starting position on the left-hand side. Ronnie drops back and becomes the country's best holding midfielder. He was the country's best holding midfielder. Before even people talked about holding midfielders, Ronnie Whelan went in and just created that position, where what he did was he won the ball back and moved it so smartly to someone like John, exactly where John wanted it. And John then went on later in his career and did that too. And I think, again, when we talk about the legacy and we talk about what we think of a Liverpool player, someone who will change their game for the benefit of the team is one of the things that I think makes a Liverpool player. And John had so many skills, so many gifts, was incredible, unbelievable at going past people. But then in his later career, he became the Ronnie Whelan for someone like Steve McManaman. And I think that's testament. He could have gone somewhere else and been the best player and been the centre of everything again. But that wasn't what he wanted to do. What he wanted to do was be part of what comes next.
But sorry, let me just interrupt you when you talk about, because a lot of this is about how eye-catching you are.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the tight shorts, the way we played. Now, when I went to Liverpool, what we were doing down the left, Stephen Nichols scored a hat-trick at Newcastle playing right now, but he's an attacking left-back. I'm down the left. The fans are going, how great that is. Who we didn't give enough respect to? Ray Houghton and Barry Venison.
Yeah.
Right? Because they were different. So they run as eye-catching, so people are going, look what's happening down the left. But what they did when they filled in, and while me and Stephen Nichols were doing what we did, they filled in, so when we lost the ball, they were equally as important, and you have to understand that and appreciate that. So was the left better than the right? No, it wasn't. It was different, and that's what the balance is all about. So as much as it's great, because from an eye-catching point of view, and I'm going to get praise because of the way you looked and you played and you did this and you did that and you dribbled, I have to appreciate from a team perspective, which I do, and this is how I view football generally, what actually goes on. When Sammy Lee and Phil Neal down the right. Sammy played it for England, and what Sammy did in terms of the hard work he did, and of course he may not be as eye-catching as somebody else, but his value to the team is equal to anybody who was eye-catching.
I think one of the common themes that's going to come out of all this is the collective.
Yeah.
The collective. That's the biggest thing about our football club, is it's about the team. You have stars like himself in the top 5 there, and he talked about other players. You know, because it's all about the common, it's all about the collective, what we can do for the team. And I think that was the biggest thing about of all of our plays and all the teams we played. Is we had stars. We had stars within our team every era, but it was all about the team.
That's why Ian Rush, for me, forget about his goal scoring. His hard work and his willingness to work for the team without scoring goals. He never scored against Manchester United for 7 years, but he didn't bother with career winning. You know, and for me, that's what football is all about. So it's fine for the fans to look at it and go, you're great, you're doing that. But from our perspective, we have to see our teammates just like ourselves.
And Johnny was our first defender, if not our best defender. And I'd have to say to you, in this common day now, with the playing off from the back, wow, his goal tally would improve no end.
Absolutely.
Because he used to take his eye off it, and defenders would think, I'm comfortable here, and then he'd pounce. Yeah. And next time, if he's doing that now, like, you know, inside the area, which they're playing, you know, goal kicks now, they're playing in the lateral. You know, if we're intercepting that ball now, he's scoring 100 more goals, without a shadow of a doubt.
We're going to get to him a little bit later on. It won't surprise you to know. Let's talk a little bit about impact with Opta Mike as well, and in terms of John Barnes' impact as quickly as it was. The amount of assists that he got in his first 4 seasons will probably take people by pleasant surprise here, Mike.
Yeah, just how far ahead he is in this table will surprise people. I feel 61 assists in those first 4 seasons. Neil obviously alluded to the change of position after that to become sort of a more holding midfield player, central midfield player. But 61 assists, you can see the nearest to him on record since 1986 in first 4 seasons would be Peter Beardsley with 44, Mo Salah then on 43 more recently. But again, they're miles behind. John Barnes in his first season got 18 assists with Liverpool in his very first season. Now only 2 players have topped that since, Steve McManaman being one and Mo Salah being the other. So he just hit the ground running straight away. 22 assists for Ian Rush in there, so built up a really good partnership with Ian Rush. And you can see just from how far ahead he was in that table that the impact he had immediately in terms of the creative force and the goals as well were there as well, because even if you include goal involvements, he would be third for most goal involvements in his first 4 seasons as well. So incredible creativity, but incredible goal scoring as well.
So let's move on, shall we? 96 to the top 100. Let's just run through the list so far to bring everybody up to date or to educate you, depending on where you've been. Here are the players who made it into the top 100 so far. And Lucas, who made it in at number 94. He got a shock there. He thought he was
for
number
sure. It's not for goal scoring and assists and you know. Yeah, you know, I saw that and I was really happy. I think, you know, I didn't expect, I have to be honest, because to be in 100 greatest player of all time of Liverpool, it's a privilege for me. You know, everybody knows how attached I am with the club, but also how hard it was for me at the beginning. You know, and when you see something like that, it means that I've done the right things. You know, maybe, like we said, I didn't win as much as I would like to, but very grateful for what I achieved with the club. And Barnes was talking about you know, the best and the appreciation of other players. Fabio Aurelio I would like to mention, because you know, he was a father figure for me. Sami Hyypiä, you know, these guys, they were really important. I was only 20 years old, so you know, if it wasn't them as well, I wouldn't maybe would be staying for 10 years. So you know, it's the appreciation of a team as well. It's really important. You don't see any of the greatest if you don't work as a team.
Can I just add a little bit of a coaching element to this for me? And I get quite often get asked this question, you know, who's the best you've ever coached? I've been massively fortunate, you know. The players who were talking about the top 5 there, other players as well. And there's certain players, you know, do you think Stevie comes out on top of that? And I say, well, no. And people, why not? Stevie G didn't need coaching.
You don't coach him.
Didn't need coaching.
Robbie Fowler,
he was just such a natural talent. All we had to give him, Gerard Houllier and Tomo had to give him the parameters and the guidelines in which to display his skills and his obvious talent. Yeah, people think, and that's no denigration of Steve, I'm just saying, didn't need coaching. This guy, for me, as a coach, I'm not saying, you've always heard me say this, Peter and John, for me, this guy, Lucas, for me as a coach, young coach coming through, one of the best. And I'm not saying that because he's on this panel. I'm saying that, and if people have heard me talk about it, it's him, because as a coach, what you want people to do is to listen and be a sponge and see, and I'm going to say the improvement. And as you say, he came as a young Brazilian, came to our league. He had father figures in Fabio Aurelio and Sami Hyypiä. But for me as a coach, to see the attention and the focus and the concentration and the improvement, for me it was. And it shouldn't happen now because you've got a young Brazilian coming over who invented the game. I'm sure John will tell you, fantastic, natural talent. But for him for me as a coach, to know that he's listening on a sponge and listening to our every word, it was wonderful for me. And again, I repeat, I'm not saying it because he's on this panel. People who know me know I've said this, for the last 10, 15, 20 years.
We have a lunch, he always says it, we have a lunch every month and, after a few drinks it comes out. So Sammy always says it.
I think Lucas is paying for lunch today on the back.
I'll have to pay for the lunch. Thanks.
Let's get to Mike again. Some stats on Lucas. Obviously, university loved by the Liverpool fan base, but hit us with some figures on him.
Yeah, so the first thing is on longevity. So his total number of appearances among South American players in Liverpool's history be second. So it's very rare to see South American players come and make this many appearances for a single team in Europe or in England. And there's only Roberto Firmino down 362 appearances, with more than Lucas at 346. A couple of the current fold in Alisson Becker and Alexis McAllister in this list, but McAllister's certainly got some way to go before catching Lucas here. But then in terms of what he was doing on the pitch as well, we can look at the two stats I've got here are tackles and interceptions, and opt to have those on record since the 06-07 season in the Premier League. And Lucas has made the most tackles and the most interceptions, but it's not just the longevity that enabled him to do that. Even if you do it per 90, he would be top. For over 5 tackles per 90, so certainly getting stuck in. But reading of the game as well with the interceptions. So Lucas was one of those sort of water carrier players, and the stats sort of bear that out, where he's working hard for the team to then allow players like Torres or Gerrard in that era to do more going forward. But Lucas would break up the play, and that's borne out in the stats there.
With the fouls, fouls on.
And the yellow card. It's really interesting because, I believe or not, I wasn't this kind of player in Brazil. Growing up, I was attacking player, and I had to reinvent myself because, I remember one game was against Chelsea that kind of tried to play as a attacking midfielder, and I couldn't do it. So I had to come home, reflect, and think, if I want to be successful in England, but also in Liverpool, I need to find a way. And the way it was to reinvent myself, to be a holding midfielder, to understand how to defend better, and that's it. Of course I wanted to score more goals, I wanted to get more in the box, but the way the Premier League was played in that moment, I couldn't do it. So I had to be humble enough to learn, and then these guys helped me so much, to make me understand. He was frustrated at times, but you see the results.
And it goes back, back to what John was saying before. He said the change in players. Well, Gerard Houllier used to have a fantastic saying: adapt or die. So it's not changing, it's adapting to the different style, what was required of Lucas or John in the team. And I keep on going back to the collective, the team. So again, someone he wasn't that type of player, but to have he mentioned the word humility, which I think is another component of everything, to come back and realise, for me to be successful in this team, I have to change, I have to adapt my style of play, and boy didn't he.
But that is why he was a typical Liverpool player. A Liverpool player has to understand the requirement of every position to be able to do that. I ruptured my Achilles tendon, I couldn't sprint anymore, so I went into centre midfield. And I had to play centre midfield, not like John Barnes wanted to dribble, I had to play it in the way that Ronnie Whelan may play it. He said he was an attacking midfield player. If they said to Sammy, go and play right back, Ronnie Whelan played centre forward, Stephen Nichols scored a hat-trick from right back, then he played centre forward, Ronnie Whelan played centre back. I played with Ronnie, he played at the back, and that's what Liverpool did. So adaptability and understanding the requirement of that position and how to play is what football for me is all about. And a typical Liverpool player has to be able to play in every position.
I end up playing as a centre back.
But there as well.
Playing a cup final.
But I think this is another kind of show of the representation that us as Liverpool fans find so important to what we do when we look at these lists, because Lucas has a song, I can't sing it because there's several swear words in it, but it was one that went round the cop, it bounced, and there's a lot of people who would say there's more technical ability of players who were a lot better than maybe Lucas, but we realised that he would give absolutely everything for the badge. He'd give 100%, he represented us well, he'd go to the ends of the earth for us, and in terms of a football, and like you said, adapt. He'd be playing wherever he was asked to play, and we could all see that, and we could all respect that. And I think you get that with Liverpool fans, that you might not need to be the most flashy player. If you were brought into Liverpool, then you know what we expect is for you to give everything for the badge, give 100%, and if you do that, then we can't have any complaints. If you're maybe not as good as someone else who was brought in, well, someone else did that, but you put in the work that we all expect, and you represent us.
Not a question of not being as good, because when I played for England, I'm playing for Watford. Glenn Hoddle, Brian Robson, they're all great players. I was in squad with Sammy, Alan Kennedy, Terry Mack for a couple of times, and Neely, and it's like, well, you know, they're not playing it regularly for England, they're not the stars, but they're the best team in Europe, without having the best individuals. And for me, that is what Liverpool, that's what football is all about. That's what Liverpool was all about.
Let's push on with the numbers then. 90 to 81, a couple of Istanbul heroes in there. Philippe Coutinho as well is in there at number 87, and then we move on to the next set of numbers as well. 80 to 71 includes one of our regular pundits. He's had a mention in Ray Houghton. Ronnie Moran in there as well. He would tell you how good he was, and every other left back that played.
Alf Arrowsmith, is Alf Arrowsmith there?
Alf features.
I had Sturridge was my indulgent pick, because he was just such a pleasure to watch for that. What was unfortunately a brief period because of injury, but it was just electric. It was electric to watch him in ways that, you know, almost like lots of players have scored more goals for Liverpool. Obviously because of the longevity, but there's just a period there when no one played centre forward like Daniel Sturridge, as far as I could see.
One of the big tragedies about Daniel Sturridge, you remember the goal he scored in your final, in the Europa League final?
Yeah.
Look at that again.
It's a lost goal. We've got a few of them in our history. It's a great lost goal. It's a great goal in a final. But that was even then he was slightly diminished from what he had been because of injury, but also he was another player who found himself at Liverpool. There's a few on this list who, you know, let's be clear, I think Daniel had probably felt a little bit like he'd not made a home anywhere, and then he arrived at Liverpool, and it very much felt like then by the time he leaves Liverpool, he's very much made a home. But he really, for me, a lot of the joy of football returning, sort of this feeling of childlike glee of watching footballers do incredible things. Daniel was a big part of that for me. You know, John, when I was growing up, was a big part of that. And you sort of lose it a little bit. You get lost in looking at tactics and ownership disputes and nonsense that's going on, and then suddenly Daniel Sturridge turns up and you're like, no, this fella makes me feel like I'm 8 years old. Because you just get so carried away. You know, the second goal of the 2 in the 4-0 in the derby, when he chips and basically kicks the ball all the way to space and back as it loops over Tim Howard. It's one of my favourite ever Merseyside derby goals. I just love Daniel so much. He genuinely, for me, really put joy back into football.
You get the sense of joy from that, don't you?
Yeah.
It's superb, and that's what football should do. As you mentioned there, Chloe, it's what it brings to the people, isn't it? You know, it does to me. It did to me as a fan, because I've always been a fan, still am now. It's fortunate, but I sense the joy in Neil there, which is wow.
And it gets forgotten as well that Sturridge won the Champions League.
Yeah,
you know, he scored against
that
PSG.
Season,
He scores against PSG in the group stages at Anfield, and is on the pitch at full time against Barcelona. You know, maybe not a Mo Salah-like contribution, but certainly it played his part in an incredible Champions League victory.
In a slightly different way, you talk about the joy that comes with Liverpool footballers as well. At 72, Joel Matip.
Yes.
You think he should be higher, Mo?
I do think he should be higher. I think if you look at everyone else in the team that he played with, they're all higher. And one of the things about modern football you see quite a lot now is you see combined 11s where people pick the best players from one team and another team. And with Liverpool, time and time again, you see the combined 11 was Alisson, Andy Robertson, Virgil van Dijk, Trent Alexander-Arnold, and some other guy from another team. And Joel Matip and Joe Gomez, I put him into this category as well, were so important to those winning teams, such an underrated presence. And again, he was someone who, when he first arrived, the team was very different to what it was by the time he left, and he was an important bedrock in getting there. And talk about joy. I mean, you could watch him. I mean, honestly, in the days where there aren't player cams anymore, I would love to just watch Joel Matip for 90 minutes.
A decision go against them is what I'd love to see.
Some of it will be defending, some of it will be him stropping around the pitch. But some of it would also be him bringing the ball out of defence, him passing the ball out of defence. I think, again, when you look at the skill set he had, for a free transfer, it's highly underrated. For
the way he's just disappeared from public life as well.
He doesn't need it anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, he's
very quiet.
I'd like to think that he's watching this so he can see how we feel about him.
I reckon he is watching it. Yeah.
He's probably not. He's probably happy with his
Probably got a film on or something.
Yeah.
But we used to see him. I used to see him. He didn't know me. He used to go, the restaurant John was talking about, we go into regular Vincenzo's. Joel used to go in, he used to be on his own after just having a quiet lunch and then go back to wherever, you know. But again, talk about adding to the community. It was brilliant just to be seen within the community. Terrific.
Yeah, I had the chance to play with him. You know, what a great guy he is. He's just chill and very calm, and you know, didn't care. You know, just wanted to come and do well and train hard and go home and
it's not one of the metrics, Lucas, but being a lovely fella should count. You
have to, otherwise I think you know, of course, and I agree. I think, you know, if you talk about that team that won the Champions League, you know, he should have been higher, for sure.
Let's continue with the list then. Let's go from 70 down to 61, some names that will pop out at you here.
Peter Thompson, he was the original John Barnes. He's the original John
Without
Barnes.
the tight shot and the rhythm.
Unbelievable. The guys used to say, if we're struggling or whatever, just give the ball to Peter Thompson, we'll get 2 or 3 minutes break, because he used to dribble. He used to frustrate some centre forwards because he'd take a dribble, come back on himself and whatever, but wow.
He would have done well in this day and age.
Fantastic, mate. I tell you what, John, he's brilliant, it's great.
Let's go through the list as it comes as well, from 60 to 51. This is maybe where Sammy Lee stays quiet here, because we'll be talking about him in just a second as well. Some iconic names in there, including the late great Diogo Jota, Peter Beardsley in there as well, Xabi Alonso, and the list goes on. Let's get a stat on Sammy Lee, actually, from Up to Mike. We've not spoke to him for a while.
Careful, Mike. Careful. Right at 6. Careful now.
16 and a half star.
Quite unique, this one, Mike.
Yeah, don't worry, Sammy, you're all right with this one. It's a record that you hold. But we've done John and we've done Lucas, so we can't leave Sammy out. But he holds a record, actually, in Liverpool's entire history for the best win rate in the European Cup, or the Champions League, as it's now known. So there's a lot of players from that era, but look at that record, 72.7%, of course, played in 2 winning finals, 1981, 1984. Only Alisson Becker from the sort of modern team that makes this list at 69%, but that is a record that's going to be tough to beat, because bear in mind, you know, the Liverpool manager with the best win rate would be Klopp at 61%, so to hold a 73% win rate in the toughest competition in club football is really quite something incredible, and it will be tough for a player to top that record.
I maybe should have gone to Spain earlier. Oh, wow, you've shocked me and surprised me pleasantly, Mike, so thanks for that, mate. Thank you.
24 wins from 33 games is quite incredible. On to the top 50 now, shall we go? And this is the list that we have for you where that is concerned. Again, some iconic names in there that would have really been debated amongst our fan
from
base.
a longevity point of view, Fernando Torres staying for 10 years would have been way higher than 44, so that's why that's very important as well.
James Milner inside the top 50 as well. You know, he arrives at the club in his 30s, where people think maybe his best years are behind him. He's ended up inside the top 50 of Liverpool's greatest ever by being the absolute, you know, force inside the dressing room, wasn't he? He ends up being vice captain to Jordan Henderson, obviously, and as a massive part of the team that wins the Premier League, the Champions League, the Club World Cup for, you know, the first time in its history. So yeah, what an unbelievable 17 was.
The effect and the impact that he had in the dressing room was huge. Huge, you know, I mean,
driving standards.
Exactly, Jamie. Driving standards, you know.
much.
You know.
Did you get fined?
You know, what a team player he was, you know. We all remember him playing as a left back. You know, just you know, incredible professional, you know, high standards, sometimes too much. When we were partying, you know, he was looking to us. So anyway, but what a great guy, and you know, it's
but the good guys,
well deserved.
To our standards, they know when to enjoy themselves as well, don't they? You know, so they allow people to do that. I just tend to think within the dressing room, within the professional ethos, I just tend to think Millie and Jordan Henderson, you know, we know how much they're missed. You know, because what they did, again, talking about the evolution and moving on in this cyclical world of ours, particularly in Liverpool Football Club, you know, I think they were part and parcel of making sure that we moved on to the next phase, and I think, wow.
Top of the Pops time then, as we count down the top 40, let's take a look at that list there. And again, Ronnie Whelan, who's been mentioned so much.
Yeah.
Neil, he is somebody that probably was only truly appreciated when he wasn't in the team. He was, an iconic Liverpool captain as well in that time.
Yeah, I think if you look at the captaincy is really important as part of this, but again, look at the fact that it was all about team first. It was all about how do we get the best out of everybody, and that was what he was about as a footballer. It's an unbelievable set of honours. It's worth pointing out that obviously it says their goal 73, but you can almost split that career in two halves. There's the career when he was, part of his role was sticking the ball in the back of the net, and then there's what then happens for his last sort of 4 or 5 years at Liverpool, where he's racking up those appearances. So he could score goals, he could pass the ball brilliantly, he could go past people, he was two-footed.
Let me tell you.
And he could tackle, yeah.
That is very significant what you said, he was two-footed.
Yeah.
Now you think people talking about two-footed on the ball, he was two-footed off the ball. People don't know it. Because what people thought, because with him and Steve McMahon in midfield, because Macca is obvious.
Yeah.
Macca is gonna break your leg. Whereas Ronnie was worse than him.
Yeah.
But Ronnie was just the way he did it. He was. I mean, we shouldn't be talking about this in terms of trying to help kids to know how to, kick people without getting caught. But Ronnie used to get away with murder because you look at him, he looks angelic. He's not a big, strong guy, but he was so aggressive. But he got away with it because you just look at Ronnie. When Macca's going, you book him. But Ronnie got away with murder. I'm telling you, Sam, you know that, wouldn't you?
Yes, very much so, yeah.
Tough player. As he's a good player, he's a tough midfield player, Ronnie.
Big guy.
Yeah.
Unbelievable athlete as well, which is something that I think in a previous era when it wasn't the same fitness standards, it wasn't the same idea of how to look after yourself. There's actually a couple on that list. My dad always talks about McDermott's engine being absolutely unbelievable, and then you hear about all the stories of what Teddy was up to at the same time. But Ronnie, I used to watch that side. He was driving everybody all at once. He was driving the whole team.
Played in every position.
Quintessential
centre midfield, centre back, right back, left back, played everywhere. Everywhere.
Had the same haircut all the way through his career as well, Ronnie Whelan. Still got the same on that.
But it's how he wasn't getting booked.
Yeah. Supposed to be in the mullet at one point.
Let's talk about Steve McManaman as well, James. He's somebody that sometimes gets missed out unfairly.
Yeah, I think he should be a lot higher than 38. Longevity-wise, was he pretty much there every step of the way throughout the 90s? I think maybe few things probably dent his legacy. I think unfairly one is the fact that it wasn't a particularly massively successful period for the club. I think obviously there's the FA Cup in '92, and then a few years later is man of the match display in the League Cup final against Bolton. But yeah, I think back to when I was first going week in, week out to watch Liverpool in the mid to late 90s. He was the absolute fulcrum of that team. And in the same way as it was like watching John in the late 80s, that in the mid to late 90s, McManaman, it was literally give him the ball and he will make something happen. And I think he was really, really underappreciated because that Roy Evans team didn't quite take that final step and probably win what they should have done. And then also I think because obviously the Bosman ruling was quite new at the time, he was one of the first that kind of took advantage of that to go to Real Madrid, and there was fans were upset about that at the time. I think that sometimes I always think in that when these lists are put together that maybe dents what the full appreciation that people should have of just how good McManaman was.
Yeah, there's probably a couple of examples of that on the list as well. We're going to ping back to Mike now as well, who this is where the debate starts to get fairly fierce, that there are certain players that should be an awful lot higher on the list. Two examples of that with Mike, Gordon Hodgson and Alan Kennedy. You think they should be higher up?
Yeah, Neil spoke earlier about Billy Liddell and players that very few people who were voting will have even seen play. Gordon Hodgson is one of those players, and he actually is, and people won't notice, Liverpool's all-time top-flight top scorer. Roger Hunt has the most in the league, but a lot of his were in the second division. Ian Rush most in all competitions. But in terms of top flight, First Division and Premier League, Hodgson has the most goals in Liverpool's history. Now, for a club that's won as many titles and has been in the top flight as much as Liverpool, I doubt there's many clubs in the world where your top flight top scorer will not be in the top 30 in a list like this. He also has the most hat-tricks in Liverpool's history with 17. So yeah, I feel like he probably it played in the wrong era to be considered higher. And the other one you mentioned there was Alan Kennedy, and the stat we've got on him is he actually won the top flight title for Liverpool in the most percentage of his seasons of players to make at least 5 seasons worth of appearances, 75%, so 8 seasons, and he won the title in 6 of them. It's pretty good going. You look at Souness there in this list, he only played 7 seasons, and Kennedy, You got to remember with Kennedy as well, scored the winner in a European Cup final and against Real Madrid, and by the way, he's the last player to do that. And Real Madrid have been in a number of European Cup and Champions League finals since, and nobody else has done it, but Kennedy was the last. So yeah, I think those two probably could have had an argument for being a bit higher.
On Gordon Hodgson there, I always remember, so when you think about this club and how lucky we've been for literally since 1892, you know, I always remember when Ian Wright took his shirt off because he broke Cliff Baston's record at Arsenal, and it was 179, I think. I think Ian Wright got 179 and the record was 178. We've got Gordon Hodgson here bouncing around on 233 just in the league. And you know, with so many of these players, it is, I think, you know, it's important not to forget them, and it is important to remember the part of what build the club to what they are, but also it's part of why we are as fortunate as we are. You know, there's so many records. I think Wayne Rooney's now Manchester United's highest ever goal scorer, and you know, he's I don't think he's on a number that feels as outrageous as what we're lucky enough to have. You know, and I think that is, when we talk about people like, you know, the longevity of the European success of people like Ian Callaghan and Jamie Carragher, to use two different eras, you know, this is something that just is not the case. And I think it's important never to take that for granted as Liverpool Football Club.
Never forget, because it's always been there. And, you know, it's why if you know, if things aren't going quite as well even for an extended period of time, Liverpool will be Liverpool and it will come again, because we've got all this history to look at of all this greatness.
Yeah. Let's push on with some more numbers then, from 30 to 21. And there's some that will be very familiar here with Lucas as well. Tempted to go to you on Bobby first and foremost, Lucas.
Yeah, you know, what an impact he had, I think. You know, of course, I remember when he first arrived, you know, he was played on the left wing. You know, it wasn't his best position, and I think the arrival of Jürgen, I think him in Germany, what a gift player, you know, a team player. You know, I don't think Mo Salah and Mane would have scored that many goals and would you know, play with that freedom if it wasn't to Bobby. So a team player that you know, didn't care, he had to defend, he would defend really, and you know, it was a pleasure to play with him, and a very good friend of him, and a great guy as well.
I know that obviously he's Brazilian, that's why you went to him. You should have come to me on Bobby. You look at why? Because of Mane, Salah, Firmino was my favourite. A lot of Salah fans have a go at me because I said that. But why Mane and Salah did what they did because of Bobby. He reminds me of Peter Beardsley. Team player, plays for the team, defend all the unseen work. And I'll say, I don't care what anyone says, for the front three, and I love all of them. I love Mane, I love Salah, but for me, the front three, the one I preferred more than any of them was Bobby Firmino.
And the biggest thing, as you said, as Lucas just alluded to there, he changed his position, he adapted his position to improve him, but also the team.
He changed his number as well, by the way. He was number 11, wasn't he? Mo comes and wants that. And to speak about the kind of man he is, he instantly was like, go for it.
You can tell me better if there was like a false 9 in the Liverpool history, you know, in terms of what he's done. So he kind of brought Mane and Mo together, you know. At times we know that it was a little bit of, you know, and I think that guy just helped everything tick, especially in the attacking phase.
There's not been many games where someone's song has rung around Anfield for 15 minutes of a game of football. Well, let me tell you, Roberto Firmino's song did. I remember Leicester away when we obviously found out he was leaving, and it's the first time I've ever been in a stadium where people are bouncing and the song has gone on for at least 15 minutes. It's just ran through, and what happens is, as it's getting a little bit quieter, there's people who've just had a 10-second breather who then start it off again, and that just goes to show how much we absolutely adored Roberto Firmino. And he did have the flashiness, and that was the thing. This is a player who was actually technically unbelievable, but he didn't get to use it all the time because he knew that his role was actually actually he had a bigger role in providing everybody else and making sure the system worked. He's arguably the most important part of Jurgen Klopp's system, with how we pressed from the front, but also how everything went through him, how he would create the space for the wingers to go in behind and have all the freedom in the space, because he'd distract everybody. He'd take players into positions where they shouldn't have been. So, you know, Roberto Firmino was one of them. I mean, even now, randomly, his song just gets sung at games of football. He's not even, you know, at the games. He's not playing for us on the pitch. So I think it was clear to see how much we absolutely adored Bobby. And, you know, for him to get the 7th goal in a 7-0 win over Man United, the first game after he announces that he'll be departing Liverpool, I think that is just...
The term on the street for him was the glue, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that was the term they used for him on the street. He gelled. You mentioned Mane and Salah, whatever was going on there, but you know, once again, him being the fulcrum of that, organising, gelling, getting people together, just for the success.
He pioneered the false nine position, didn't he? I don't think any of us had ever heard of it really before he invented it almost at Liverpool. But there's always this idea that, you know, Mane and Salah get their goals because of Firmino, but you know, he scored goals himself. 111 he finishes with at the end of his Liverpool career, and the season he won the league, 1920, he only got 1 goal at Anfield actually, which was in the very final game against Chelsea, but all of his goals are obviously away from home, and I think he was responsible for about 15 points that won Liverpool games, you know, winning goals. So
Wolves away, Crystal Palace away.
Like Ian Rush, forget about what he's doing when he's scoring goals or creating. How hard does he work for the team, chasing back defensive midfield players? He's the first to tackle them. That's what I like about him. Forget about how skillfully he scores. Yes, we take all that for granted, but what he does off the ball, in terms of being the first line of defence when you have a deep-lying midfield player chasing back into different positions. He reminds me of Peter Beardsley. Peter Beardsley was like that.
But this could blow smoke up, you know, the proverbial. But we say, look at your assists. You know, we mentioned that before.
But interestingly, I did that was my job. so I never knew how many assists I had. I knew how many goals I had, because assist is a very objective term. Because if I pass the ball from 2 yards at the edge of our box to Mo Salah, and he dribbles around 10 players and score, I've assisted him. Because I passed in the last time. So this whole assisting is a bit like...
my assist was...
The other thing about Bobby is he had so much personality as well. And as a fan, it was just infectious. Like, you know, the celebrations that he'd do when he scored. Then you're having kids, you know, replicating them in schools and things like that. So he was such an infectious, bubbly character that
humble.
You as a fan could be, you know, you could really buy into that, and you'd love to see. He'd score a goal and you'd just be laughing at him because he was doing something absolutely mad for the celebration.
Infectious smile, I think it's safe to say. Smile, wasn't it? Numbers 20 to 11, these are the players who came so close to making the top 10. This becomes quite divisive now because they all have a claim, don't they, to be in the very top echelons where that is concerned as well. Probably best summed up by Luis Suarez. You can see there as well. This is probably the player that most people would have disagreed on, I think it was safe to say. And this is that whole thing about the 50-50 split online is, you know, had he stayed a little bit longer, would he have been...
The thing about it, if you talk about Luis Suarez and you talk about, forget about everything else. Let's just talk about a 3-year period. Yeah? And you can give me, you can give Kenny Down, you could give everybody just your best 3 years. And he would be number one, wouldn't he? Because for that 3-year period, he was just incredible. Now, of course, it's a different criteria, which is why he's where he is. But when you just talk about a small space of time when somebody was just incredible, Luis Suarez was fantastic.
For some Liverpool fans, he'd be the best ever.
When I saw him so high up, I was surprised just because it was a short stint, because he went to Barca, because at one point he nearly went to Arsenal. He really tried to force his move there, and because he didn't have the longevity, nor did he have the titles. But, you know, that 13-14 season, he was absolutely on fire. For someone who, you know, before the Jurgen Klopp, before I saw success, you know, he was a player that was the first one who I was like, wow, you know, you know, when people talk about the 80s and how great these players were, and, you know, the top quality players, he was the first one who I really watched, and I was like, he is one of the world's greatest.
When you talk about his technical ability, is his aggression. He was as technical as some players. He's not as technical as you think in terms of, I think Bobby Firmino is more technical than him, but his aggression, his ability, he was like an old school boxer. He could play when we played. You know, he could play in the 80s with his aggression.
Paul mentioned the terminology before about false nine, the one that came out from him was street footballer. That's what came out from him. And I can guarantee you, academies were starting to use the thing, street football, like the cage and all that, because of someone like him, because he had a different technical set up, you know. But I say aggression, but street football springs to mind.
That's what that team needed as well, though. I think this kind of goes back to impact. We talked about the fact that he wasn't there for very long. He had a massive impact on that team. I mean, there's going to be a few players on this list who we can say this about, but he lifted the level of everyone around him. And Chloe mentioned she didn't get to see Steven Gerrard in his prime. Listen to Steven Gerrard talk about Luis Suarez. He will tell you everything you need to know. And I think there are some footballers who, when you see them when you go into a match, you're thinking, this guy can literally do anything. Like that 13-14 season, but even the year before it, you go up to Anfield and you think, I wouldn't believe what I've just seen. And he would do that again and again and again, week in, week out. I mean, we all remember the goals, the goal against Newcastle, the absolute hammerings he gave to Norwich. I don't know why he hated Norwich so much, but I enjoyed him.
John sure hated him.
but there were so many memories that instantly come to mind when you think of the beautiful artistry that he put on that football pitch. And yes, it's a shame that team didn't win the Premier League title. I think if they had won it, then this wouldn't even be a debate.
Again, Neil mentioned the term before, box office. He provided box office, didn't he? You know, you mentioned you wanted to go to a football match to see him. You know, brilliant.
I think there's an argument to be made that 13-14 is the greatest individual season from a player with Luis Suarez. He scores 32, which was a new record at the time, and he misses the first 5 games through suspension. You know, had he not missed them, Liverpool probably would have pipped City to the league. But
once again, we're talking about Liverpool Football Club. Great individual achievements winning nothing, no individual achievements winning everything. What's more important? That's what we have to understand.
This will put John Barnes in a good mood. I think we might need this here. Opta Mike thinks Phil Neal ranked far too low.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, John alluded to it earlier. The stat we've got on him here is the consecutive appearances. John said it was 6 years. It was actually 7 years he didn't miss a game. So it was from October 1976 to September 1983. He played 417 consecutive Liverpool appearances. Now, of all the records that we talk about and the accolades that players have won, I think this is the most unbeatable record in Liverpool's history. Nobody will ever come close to this again. The 2 closest to him are goalkeepers, Clements and Grobbelaar, but so Grobbelaar's 100 behind. The nearest outfielder there is Chris Lawler at 316. And also with Phil Neal, is nobody won more major honours in Liverpool's history than him. So he was a consistent part of the most successful Liverpool team we've ever seen, and John alluded to it earlier, that how important that was. So yeah, for him to only be 18, again, it shows the standard of maybe the players that are above him, but yeah, an incredible player.
Or the age of the voters.
Part of that run, by the way, he travelled with a smashed cheekbone to one game, and he was told he was just travelling to be part of the squad and ended up playing, starting the game. I mean, you'd never ever see it again. Let's get to the top 10. A little extra time coming in at number 10. The club's record appearance holder, talking of records that will never be beaten, Ian Callaghan.
Everyone back in the pitch. Callaghan, done it. Case, good play, Callaghan. Oh, he's got it! Ryan changing his mind. Keegan couldn't get that. Callaghan, yes! To Callaghan, who lets go.
The club's record appearance holder, 857 games. World Cup winner with England in 1966, 5 league titles, 2 European Cups, and 1 Footballer Writers Player of the Year award as well.
And one of the nicest men.
Yeah.
Well, and also he had 1 book, and what a dirty player. I have to be careful because John knows it, and you all know I eulogise over this guy, you know. And again, another thing, the topic that we mentioned before, starts off as a winger, right winger, ends up playing centre midfield. So once again, adaptation, changing for the collective. I know, repetitive, forgive me, but that's what this is all about. You know, I think the guy, and again, I said before, he was what I aspired to be, both on the pitch and off the pitch. And I failed on both, but at least I tried. At least I tried to get there. And it was such a high level that I tried to get to. And the guy
He's
is
5'8", Family's 5'7". He inspired to just one more
I
inch.
wish I was 5'7". But it's just to me, and again, John mentioned before, we're very, very fortunate. Neil had also mentioned the fact that we stick together. We still see each other regularly. We have this lovely lunch, and honestly, I can never remember going home, because I didn't know the next day by my Uber receipt, you know what I mean? But Callie is just steady.
And when you talk about humility, I mean, he came to South Africa with us. The old players went to South Africa, and of course there was obviously Jimmy Redknapp, some of the younger boys I was there, and Callie used to come with us, and anybody who remembered him, and because of course when football changed to become more celebrity focused, lots of people coming over, autographs on Callie just used to stand back and you go, no, they're the boys over there, you don't know me type of thing. And he was such a humble person. And in terms of what he's done, most appearances for Liverpool, he's my favourite all-time Liverpool player. Favourite all-time Liverpool player. Not in terms of the way, I never saw him play, and in fact I might even played against him, that's how old he is. I am. But in terms of knowing about him and knowing him as a person, favourite Liverpool player.
And for me, without a shadow.
We love that. Let's get to number 9 then. Rather appropriately, one of the greatest centre forwards England has ever produced. Sir Roger Hunt.
Is it too high for Callaghan? No. Hunt. It's the goal. Yes, a goal by Hunt. Aitley trying to get Hunt away. A real chance for Roger Hunt.
285 goals, 2 league titles, 1 FA Cup, and in the 11 for the 1966 World Cup final as well. Rather unusually wore number 8, and it was the reason why John Aldridge wore number 8 for Liverpool, because his hero worship of Sir Roger was so great. Another iconic player, John, that Liverpool fans just absolutely adore.
Well, of course, 66 was Jeff Hurst, yeah, but Roger Hunt played up front with him, and it should have been Roger Hunt and Jimmy Greaves. Jimmy Greaves got injured, so Jeff Hurst got in, he took over, he scored the hat-trick. He was the main player for England in 1966, and John Aldridge tells you about Roger Hunt. I don't know much about him, I wasn't around, but when Aldo says that was his hero, and you see how hard he worked for the teams, the goal he scored, he was also a typical Liverpool player. You look at Jimmy Greaves, who was a great goal scorer, but even England understood that he would have been, in terms of Greaves, Hurst and Hunt, as much as the other two may be more famous, if you like, he was the most important one.
How did Aldo get to choose his number, by the way?
He was that good, wasn't he? Really wanted.
Aldo Sir Roger.
Well, I think when he came, he didn't want to be number 9 to follow Russia, so he's always number 8.
That's a true story, yeah.
But I grew up watching him, Pete. I grew up watching him, Sir Roger, and Callie and St John. Just wow.
And he was knighted by the Liverpool faithful, because everyone called him Sir Roger Hunt.
Yeah.
A lot of people think he's got a knighthood, because they just call him Sir Roger Hunt.
Let's get to number 8. We are coming right up to the date of the current day, of course, and it's the skipper, Virgil van Dijk.
Is there anything this man can't do? It's Virgil van Dijk!
So many iconic titles in there. I just wonder whether that League Cup one would overtake it for many people, with the youngsters in the team by the end of that game, and for him to produce the goal that he does is iconic, James.
Yeah, I know that moment meant the world to him, especially in those circumstances, and of course it turns out to be Jurgen Klopp's last trophy as well, doesn't it? And I mean, he's, for me, right up there when I think of most transformative signings in Liverpool's history. You could make the argument maybe Alisson. For me, it's Van Dijk, because I just think that was such an area of weakness for Liverpool. For a number of years, they'd lacked a defensive leader since Jamie Carragher's retirement, and then for him to come in and to have that pressure as well of the price tag and all the talk about obviously the move had fallen through the previous summer. There'd been this clamour for you can't just wait for him, you've got to go and get someone else. They stuck to their guns. They wanted Van Dijk. He could have gone anywhere really at the time. I mean, the biggest tribute you can pay him is when he came in, I thought, how do you possibly live up to this? Because everyone is expecting so much, but he hasn't just lived up to that. In the last 8 years, he's surpassed it, and he is, he's the talisman, the inspirational leader, and for me, the best centre-back in the Premier League era.
I was very, very fortunate to be a coach of Southampton with Ronald Koeman when he was there, him and Sadio. you know, and Kleiny as well. And I have to say, without being disrespectful to Southampton, you knew he was destined for bigger and better things, you know. And obviously for us at Southampton, when he left, it was sad. But again, you knew he was going to a fantastic club, as did Sadio, as did Nathaniel Klein. And you always knew you didn't need to be a Philadelphia lawyer to see that this guy was going to be top draw.
If you look at this whole thing that we're doing today, it's very generational. You look at players and you think they couldn't play then, we couldn't play now. You know, so you look at it and you think, that's why I say any great player of any great era would be exactly the same, because they would adapt to that circumstance. But when I look at players who I say, can a player who's playing today, or can a player who was playing 30 years ago be the exact same player 30 years ago and play today? Virgil van Dijk, exact same player as he is today, could play when we played. Not many centre-backs you can say that about, not many centre-forwards. Yeah, so for me, and you can go back to Sammy knows much more than I in the history, but for me, Alan Hansen and Virgil van Dijk, for me, are the two best centre-backs. Some who can say he didn't have to change the way he plays if he comes to play nowadays. He's strong, he's physical, he can play. Alan Hansen can play now, whereas someone like Tommy Smith, for example, unless he adapted to today's game, he couldn't take his game to today, get sent off every week, whereas he could go back to play, because of course it's much tougher then, but he'd be able to do it.
And he makes it all look so easy. It's so frustrating. It must be so frustrating as an opponent playing against him, because he never breaks a sweat. It always looks cool.
Well, the centre forward say he smells great as well.
Oh, he does. Look at all of us here have had time with him. We all know he does.
I don't think I like my centre half to smell good, so maybe I'll take that back. You couldn't play with me. But smelling good.
It's that old saying, isn't it? You know, all men are created equal, and then Virgil van Dijk comes along. He just took a team from being pretenders to contenders with the Kiev runners-up and then champions, essentially. And, you know, he's emblematic, alongside Mo, to be fair, of that period where Liverpool just win the lot. You know, Champions League, Premier League, Club World Cup, you know, throw in a couple of FA Cup and Carabao Cups along with it, and he has been the absolute leader and the rock almost since day one, really, and it's dating back, 9 years now. So,
and also alluding to what Chloe says, off the pitch, he's fantastic for the community. We know through our charity, the McVeigh charity, fantastic in that. And again, it's crucial to the overall situation of what we're judging him on here. And I think, again, because he doesn't publicise it, but we know being part of it is just fantastic.
Also, he's, for me, the greatest centre-half I will ever see play football. I don't think anyone... You know, we speak about, and we have been speaking about, how do you ever replace Mo Salah? How do you ever replace Virgil van Dijk? I mean, he might not be getting all the goals that Mo Salah ever got, but my word, it is going to be almost impossible to replace him as a figure and him as a player. And I think something that we should also look at is he had a massive ACL injury. He was the world's best before that. He had this massive ACL injury, and somehow he got back there. Everyone thought potentially after that ACL injury he can never get back to the levels of being the greatest centre-half in potentially Liverpool's history. Obviously Alan Hansen's up there, but also in Europe at the time, and yet he went and put himself right back there, and that goes to show you the calibre of player he is. He's an absolute colossal, and he's so important on the pitch, off the pitch, and it's been incredible to see him represent us. A brilliant player, and you speak of, you know, players who we love to have and love to represent us. Virgil van Dijk.
Oh yeah, I agree with you. Alan Hansen and Virgil van Dijk.
What a centre half.
If you had to pick one of them.
Oh, don't do this to me.
No, you won't. I will.
Okay, great, there you go. That's fine.
It was almost a comfortable segue.
Yeah.
We're going to run out of time, so we need to get to number 7, who is the aforementioned Alan Hansen.
Hansen. Outside him is Souness. Still Hansen though. And Alan Hansen puts an end to the Liverpool goal famine. Hill finding McDermott. Highway outside him. Thompson up ahead of him. Bailey is down. And it's a goal. Hansen. McDermott with room and time to cross. And here's Hansen. League Championship winner for the 8th time. A fantastic record.
Yeah, trophy parades were a little bit different in Alan Hansen's day, but 620 games for Liverpool, 8 league titles, 3 European Cups, 2 FA Cups and 4 League Cups. I rudely interrupted you, Neil, on these two, Alan Hansen and the aforementioned Virgil van Dijk.
What I think is really interesting is that we're going to go through this list, and as we get to the end, Mo Salah's going to be coming up. I'm not giving anything away, but Mo Salah, even whilst he was playing but full stop, was not as good as Leo Messi. We're going to get Kenny, and we love Kenny, and Kenny's absolutely incredible, but, you know, Diego Maradona or Kenny, I think most people will go with Maradona. There's a fighting chance that these are two of the 3, 4, 5, but maybe not even more than that, greatest players ever in their position. The two of them, the greatest players ever in their position. When you stop to think about that, you know, again, brilliant club and everything that we've had, but either Van Dijk or Hansen could be the greatest people ever to play central defence.
Absolutely.
So that's mind-boggling. You know, this game that's played all around the world. You know, was Hansen better than Baresi? You know, one of the shames when we talk about what was missed in the non-European era is actually seeing that,
particularly on the ball. Baresi's a better defender, but Aaron was so intelligent as a defender that we remember Lawrence and Hansen. We remember Laurel tackling and sliding in. Aaron Hansen took the ball off you. He never tackled because he would intercept. He would read the game, so he never got dirty. And that's how good a defender he was. People think a good defender is someone who's going to make big tackles and slide in and recovery tackles. Aaron didn't have to do that. You're showing out everything he does on the ball. Defensively, he was impeccable.
There's only one who's got to be along there. I've got to be, and I'm not this is a Liverpool thing, but they are akin to the great Beckenbauer.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know, really, and they've got to be. It's like when I watch Jockey play. It's like watching Beckenbauer. Now you may not know Beckenbauer, but wow.
Yeah. But they're the levels that you talk
about. Of course, without a shadow of a doubt. And them two would be alongside them with 3 of the best in their position ever. Ever. You're right what you're saying there.
Let's get to the third Scott in the top 10. It's one of the real tough guys in Graham Souness.
Picked out Souness, who picks out the beauty. Souness. And a goal! Souness for Liverpool. Souness, real chance, and it's there. It's well done, Liverpool.
Yeah, Sammy's captain and his big mate as well. If you look at any of the team groups from that era, Sammy's always stood next to him, Graham Souness. That's how close they were.
To get a photo, that's all. I wouldn't have been on any of them photos, I know. And you know, again, after Cali, I have to say it's the best. And again, I've been very, very fortunate. I get asked all the time, you know, who have you played with? With England, Kenny, Rushy, Ronnie Whelan, but this guy, you know. And another thing you mentioned before about centre halves, he even smelled better than the rest of us. But what a leader, on and off the pitch, and the guy was just tremendous, huge, and it still is now.
It's the first time you'd ever seen a hairdryer in the dressing room. He became a player. With the perm and everything else, yeah.
I never seen it.
You had a perm,
I'm sure you had a perm. You do not one photo you see me. I've had a fringe, but I've never had a perm.
Tell you the interesting thing about Graham Souness, and this is how football is sold, because of course, the images we saw of Alan Hansen's him scoring goals, he never scored many goals. You saw Souness scoring goals. He didn't score many goals, but what he does, yes, he'll score there, and we're showing him score goals and say, look how great he is. But you look at the 90 minutes, and forget about his goals, the influence he had on a team, in a creative way, in a defensive way, in a destructive way, in teams not doing well, galvanising people. When you talk about a Liverpool player, because he was particularly eye-catching, a leader, and he was just incredible.
Okay, it is time to let you know who is claiming the number 4 slot in our countdown.
Mohamed Salah making his first Premier League start. And it's Salah for Liverpool! And Mo Salah has a debut goal!
And Mohamed Salah helping himself once again to goal number 18 of the season.
He's still going. And Salah for Liverpool! Have a little bit of that! Here's Salah, and still Salah. Oh, Mohamed Salah! How about that? And here's Mohamed Salah! Goes for goal! Oh my word! The Egyptian king just cannot stop scoring.
And he scores! And Liverpool make the perfect start.
And Mo Salah is number 4 on the countdown. 257 goals in 442 games, 2 league titles, a Champions League, 3 Player of the Year awards, 4 Golden Boots. In modern times, there hasn't been another striker like him. Let's go to Chloe because she's the youngest on the panel. I'm hasten to say by quite some distance, by the way. It probably gave you the best years of your life.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. It's been an absolute joy, you know. my dad speaks about the 80s and all the joys that he got to see, and growing up, Liverpool were extreme underdogs, and we took on this underdog mentality. Mo Salah coming and signing for us, he had the same underdog mentality. He was cast away after not a great time with Chelsea. No one believed he could come back to the Premier League and do it all over again. They called him a one-season wonder. It turned out to be, a 9-season wonder in the end, and just absolutely incredible. Once again, what he did on and off the pitch, how he represented the crime rates in Liverpool went down as well. So there was just so many incredible moments that Mo Salah gave me inside the football stadium, and scoring a goal several seconds after Ndai had one disallowed at the Hill Dickinson Stadium, him taking that as the first ever goal scorer of a Merseyside derby at the Hill Dickinson as Mo Salah. Just the graphic that we always see, only Mo Salah, and that is what it felt like time after time after time. Every time he took to the pitch, you knew he was going to break another record. Unbelievable days and the greatest ones of my life.
Yeah. Talking of graphics, let's get back to up to Mike on this, because from that list, the final list, it is the best goals per game ratio of any Liverpool player.
Yeah, he scored at a rate that no Liverpool player has ever matched, with the longevity as well. So these with more than 100 goals. You can see Rushy is on this list as well. But yeah, 139 minutes per goal. Gordon Hodgson, who we alluded to earlier, is closest at 141. So he was scoring at a rate, and bear in mind he wasn't even a central striker, he was a winger. And he's scoring at a rate that we've never seen at the club before. And then even if you factor in his assists as well and make it goal involvements, this is what made him so unique. He could do both the goals and the assists. So he was scoring or assisting a goal every 95 minutes he played on average, and he maintained that over 442 games and 9 seasons. You look at the others in the list, they can't come close to him for games. John Aldridge, Luis Suarez, Daniel Sturridge. They're not close to him for games, and he's still above them for the rate at which he was scoring and assisting. So for me, as a football statistician, he's been a dream, really, in terms of the records he's broken. And it's borne out there that just how incredible his record is in the last 40 years.
Not just a dream for football stat men, but also for headline writers and written journalists as well. James, how special has it been to play some kind of part in trying to articulate how special this lad has been?
Difficult to find the words at times, because you run out of superlatives, because especially in the context of if you go back to when he signed for Liverpool, there was all that stuff, wasn't there, about he was a Premier League flop, he couldn't handle the demands of English football, he'd failed in inverted commas at Chelsea, when the reality was he hadn't ever been given a fair crack of the whip. But to go away to Italy in the way he did, and to rebuild and kind of come back with that bit between his teeth, I think still that first season was just just off the scale in terms of the things he did, the numbers, just the breathtaking consistency. And then as Chloe said, then it was like, well, he's a one-season wonder, you're not going to back that up. And then it was the worst one-season wonder ever, because he just kept on doing it. And I think the other thing that always struck me about him is the durability. I mean, it was up to that kind of the last 12 months, he barely missed a game. And just that drive and hunger to always better himself, the humility of it, the way he conducted himself on and off the pitch. He didn't stop and speak to us in the media too often. When he did, he usually had something he wanted to get off his chest. He picked and chose his moments. But it was just an absolute honour to be able to say that for most of those 400 odd games, there for the vast majority of them.
Evie defined what it was to be a winger as well, because those numbers. Yeah,
not a winger.
No, but those numbers are a striker's numbers, and yet you'd find him being played as, he did play number 9 at times, but the positions that he got in because of Bobby Firmino and things. But, him and Sadio Mane, no one ever would have thought that you needed 3 goal scorers to get 20 plus goals at a time when I was growing up. It just didn't really happen. Then Klopp and Pep came along, and their sides redefined what you expect of wingers nowadays. You can't just hit the byline, whip it in, and you strike again on the end of it. You have to be able to, get the goal contributions as well, and he certainly did that.
His consistency was extraordinary, wasn't it? A lot of players would maybe turn in 2 or 3 good performances and take the fourth week of the month off and, not really do it. He was doing it every single week, and, you look at the numbers that are borne out, and it's that, like Chloe says, only Mo Salah, isn't it? And I know he's big into his philosophy and all that sort of stuff, and he said he was doing something called, you know, a visualization in the summer of 2024. It was his last year of his contract. He wasn't really sure what it was going to look like at the end of it, and he just put everything into visualising being the main man for a team that is going to try and win the Premier League. And as it turned out to be, I think he scored, was it 29 Premier League goals, maybe 30, 31. Liverpool go and win the Premier League by 10 points. He's the far and away the star of the show, and, you know, adds another trophy to his glittering honours list. And, you know, what an incredible player he's been. And, you know, over 9 years, best part of a decade, amazing.
He had Jurgen Klopp to thank. The way Jurgen Klopp played suited him, Mane, Firmino down to the ground. You look at the numbers he posts, and you can say he's far and away ahead of anybody else. Now, let's look at it differently. Let's look at the chances you've had to the goals you've scored. Although would be way ahead of him in that. So would Robbie Fowler. The way Liverpool played, because he missed a lot of chances, because he's not a number 9. He's not a 1 and 2 man in terms of the chances that you actually get. He scored lots of goals because of the way Liverpool play, which is great for Mane. That's why Jurgen Klopp implemented a style to suit every player, from Fabinho to Wijnaldum, all of these players, and Mo benefited from that. So his numbers are a reflection of the way that Liverpool actually played. In terms of his clinical finishing in front of goal, would you put him ahead of Rushy, Robbie Fowler or John Aldridge? In terms of the chances, the goals to chances ratio. We can't take it away from him, obviously, but I think we can't underestimate how important Jurgen Klopp was to everybody in that Liverpool team.
And I'd have to say to you, them for him as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You know, I have to say, you know, because there was a fantastic chemistry between them. You know, yes, they have to thank Jurgen, but, you know, and Jurgen has to thank them, because obviously he implemented his style. But them individuals to produce what they produced, and with sort of just to be on the numbers anyone's ever been used to. As far as I'm
similar to Trent. The way Liverpool played suited Trent to do what Trent did. At other clubs, they wouldn't do that. So as much as we're looking at them individually, you have to look at the way we played, which just suited those individuals perfectly.
That makes perfect sense to you, as somebody who played under Jurgen Klopp. He had a way of making things work for certain players, didn't he? And like John says,
yeah,
you know, he would thank Jurgen Klopp an awful lot for what he achieved at Liverpool.
Yeah, I think John is right, because if you didn't have that midfield, you know, 3 that, you know, were... able to run that much, to defend that much. Bobby Firmino as a 9, defending a lot and giving the freedom to him. Maybe he wouldn't have that many chances of scoring. So, but let's not take anything away from him. You know, is what an impact he had, and I had a chance to stay 3 weeks with him in the pre-season after I left, and it was a big debate. You know, will he be able to cope, you know, with the Liverpool standards? And he's done more than enough, I would say. So he's one of the greatest for sure.
But I'm understanding all this to the point, you know, for me, one of the images that I get when I think of Salah is after, in 2022, when on the final day he scores the goal that he thinks has won Liverpool the league, but he doesn't know what's happened at Manchester City. And he's unbelievably emotional. Often he's very cool after he scores. He's unbelievably emotional after scoring the goal. Final whistle goes, he finds out he hasn't won the league, and he gets given assist of the year and goal scorer of the year. And on the photograph, he's crying because this doesn't mean anything. This thing doesn't mean anything if we all haven't won. And that was, you know, that was telling that he understood that, you know, how the team operates, that you need everyone. And even if you go back to last summer, when people were talking about the players leaving and players coming in for Liverpool, Salah was saying, don't talk down these lads who've left. They were so important to everything we've achieved. And also we're going to find it harder this year because we haven't got these fellas who are team players in the same way. I think that, you know, that to me is a big part of what he understood, that everything had to work. Everything had to work. And that image of him with those 2 trophies, but he's devastated, I think is, you know, it's the essence of what we're talking about when we're talking about this club.
I think you contrast it with the photo from the 24-25 season, where he's got all of them, including the Premier League trophy. Big old grin on his face, because he is about winning. That's the thing. He is willing to do what it takes for the team to win. And look, we've spoken about how the team's set up to help him achieve everything, but that in itself becomes pressure. It's like, if we're setting up the team to get you to do the best thing, you've got to go out there and do the best thing. And he did it again and again. And I think about the amount of times where he had a fantastic season and then would come back in pre-season and he'll look better and sharper. And again, I think you mentioned the 21-22 season. That's one that always sticks out in my mind. The first 6 months of that season, I honestly didn't think he could get any better, and somehow he had got better. I would put him alongside any player in the world at that point in time. And that season isn't really looked on as well as it should be, because ultimately the 2 biggest trophies didn't arrive. But I think that was a year in which you saw the greatest of the individual and of the collective, and he was a massive part of that.
We're getting a little bit closer then to finding out who Liverpool's greatest ever is. Time to tell you who's made it in at number 3.
This could be history here for Ian Rush if he scores. He's at the post. He might score now, he has. And it's the first hat-trick in a Merseyside derby since 1935. It's Ian Rush, can he score his fourth? It looks as though he has, yes. Oh, and he's hovering again, there is Rush. Well, I say, the man just can't be stopped. And Rush is on the far side. Is this 3? It is! Rush! Goal! Michael Thomas! Rush! 2-0 Liverpool!
Rush on the turn, and Ian Rush! What about that?
Almost as impressive as watching that was listening to Neil Atkinson do the same commentary as John Motton. He's memorised it all from those iconic goal-scoring runs. Liverpool's record goal scorer, quite simply, 5 league titles, 3 FA Cups, 4 League Cups and a European Cup. Ian Rush is at number 3. Now, he really wanted to be here for the show today, but he had an appointment on with some sunshine and a super yacht somewhere, and early he did manage to give us a couple of minutes to catch up with him about this very thing. Great to see you, Ian. And you are at number 3. Give us your reaction to that.
Well, I'm very proud to tell you the truth. I know I'm the record goal scorer, but Liverpool have had so many fantastic players. It's to be number 3. It's something that I should be proud of. I'm proud of being a record goal scorer, but this is just as proud to be number 3 in Liverpool's all-time 100.
You've probably not given it too much thought, but were you surprised by that number? Did you expect to finish around about that? What's your feelings on that one?
Well, I think when you look back now, I think when I was playing, I didn't expect that. But when you look back now and I'm the record goal scorer, I suppose, I would have been happy in the top 5, top 10, to tell you the truth, because, like I said, so many great players. But I think being a record goal scorer does help you. And today's day and age, the youngsters didn't really see me play and everything. They're most probably the dads or the granddads most probably saying how good he was. So to be recognised like that, and when you look at the, I think to be in the top 10, I think you've got to be at the club. Between 8, 9, and 10 years. It's not just there's been some fantastic players who've only been at the club maybe 2, 3, or 4 years. So I think being at the club so long, that does help as well.
Tell us about your top 10 then, because we often hear that phrase of player's player, don't we? And it's always the award at the end of any season that any footballer wants, the appreciation of their fellow professionals, if you like. Anyone that's not in the top 10 that would be in Ian Rush's top 10?
It's difficult because I think a lot of them, I look at the people I played with on the pitch. I know that. And there's 2 for me, for example. One would be Ronnie Whelan. Who was he went unnoticed. I think it's only when he wasn't playing people realised why Liverpool were not playing well, because he'd be the master of interception. He'd intercept the ball, give it to Dalglish or Souness, and they'd give it to me and I'd score. And people would say, what about the great pass by Dalglish or Souness, and what about the great goal from Rush? But what it all started with Ronnie Whelan. He'd intercept from the opposition to do that, and he always came up with important goals as well at the right time. He'd be most probably in there, and the other one is Steve Nicol. Now he can play in any position. Now, I've seen him once play against Newcastle left midfield, and he scored a hat-trick. And people like that goes unnoticed. But I think if you ask the players themselves, they know they know these players are special, but they do go unnoticed.
Give us an insight then, because Stevie and Sir Kenny still to come, in what order we will reveal towards the end of the show today. But what was it like to play with Kenny? Give us an insight from a record goal scorer's point of view of how good that was as an experience for you.
Well, for me, Kenny Dalglish is Liverpool's best player of all time and everything. So I remember when I come to the club, and I'd been in a few games, I hadn't scored or anything, and Kenny knew I was quick, and I remember him saying, when I get the ball, you run into that position. And he had his back to goal, everything, and he put the ball where he said he's going to go. And I didn't run. I didn't make the run. I say, that's impossible to do that. And the look on his face when I didn't make that run, I say, I might make one mistake, but I'm not going to make two mistakes. You know, so Kenny, 9 times out of 10, Kenny would put the ball where he was saying, and it was amazing. He had his back to goal. You know, only thing I had to learn whether he's going to put it first time or have a touch, then do it. So that was obviously telepathic, actually, because I've never seen any player could do what Kenny Dalglish could do.
Arguably the greatest partnership we've ever seen. I think it was clear from what you've said there that you think that, and you think that he should be number one as well. He would get your vote every day of the week, would he, Sir Kenny?
Yes, he would. It's very difficult and all that, but you know, I was a goal scorer. No, Kenny was a goal scorer and a goal maker. You know, he was absolutely. He always played for the team as well. If someone was in a better position, Kenny would pass to that person as well. So for me, and the skill he had about turning defenders and everything, and he wasn't a soft player as well. He knew when to put his foot in when he did in them days.
Yeah. That's maybe worth some extra points now, isn't it? The physical punishment that you used to take as strikers back in those days. Defenders would always get at least one free shot at you. Finish it off for us then, Ian. Steven Gerrard as well. You would have been aware of him as elite players, and you were coming towards the end a couple of years before he actually made his debut for Liverpool. But whispers get around, I imagine, inside the training ground at Melwood that there's a new kid on the block here that's going to cause some ruptions when he gets his debut.
Without doubt. You know, I went when I left Liverpool, I went to Leeds for a year, then I went to Newcastle for a year. But I still kept in touch with, Phil Thompson, Sammy Lee, and I got to know Gerard Houllier then as well. So, but the first thing they done, they said, "We want to see this lad." He said, "He's going to be a superstar," and I think Gerard Houllier looked after him a lot as well, took him under his wing, done that. But he was absolutely phenomenal, and he's a leader as well. One gets to say when he grew up and all that, and when he became captain, he was a leader. And what he'd done in Istanbul, he deserves to be in maybe first for some people. But he was an incredible player. But for me, he was a born leader, and to a young age as well. And that's why Phil Thompson, Sammy Lee, Gerard Houllier, they're all saying we got some player here.
Well, Ian, we appreciate you. We appreciate your memories as well. Thanks for taking time out from your holiday to join us on the show today.
You're welcome, Pete.
Great to see him. Ian Rush at number 3. Let's get to to Mike on some of the numbers where Ian Rush is concerned. 65 games, 47 goals. The most in a single season of the list as well, Mike.
Yeah, he did that in the 1983-84 season, and that's one of those records that's going to be very tough to beat. Mo Salah, as we've alluded to earlier, gave it a really good go in his debut season at 44. But yeah, 47 goals in 65 games is a number that's going to be struggle to get beaten in Liverpool's history. He's actually as well the only player to score 40 goals twice in 2 separate seasons. Did it again in 86-87. Salah's in this list twice as well that we've highlighted. But another record, and we speak of unbeatable records, this one's certainly up there, is Ian Rush's unbeaten run when he scored. This is from the first game he scored in 1981 up until 1987. When Ian Rush scored, Liverpool just didn't lose 144 games in a row, and the first time he lost was the 87 League Cup final against Arsenal. So you can see Dalglish is in this list twice, Mo Salah's in this list, Keegan was the previous record holder before Rush, but he didn't just break that record, he's absolutely smashed it. And yeah, we talk about unbeatable records, that's certainly up there as one of the most unbeatable.
Incredible numbers, incredible player.
I don't know how you can separate these three. I really don't. We spoke about those, so there's no spoiler alert. I just don't know how you can separate them. But the thing is, the guys have alluded to it before as well. It wasn't just his goal scoring; it was his overall effect for the team. I repeat what we said before. He was our first defender, our best defender. He pounced upon people. He'd give them the split second where they thought they had time, and he'd pounce. So not only did have stats back Michael, it's just the fact that his overall influence and impact for the team was marvellous.
I mean, I agree with Sam in terms of Because, of course, when you look at goal scorers, they're all going to score. Robbie Fowler, Michael Owen, Gary Lineker, Alan, they all score goals. So what I say is, what are they doing when they're not scoring goals? And when you talk about closing down the back four, I'm not talking about closing down the centre half. When he goes to the full-back, he'll go to the full-back. He'll close down the whole back four. And that's why I would put Ian Rush ahead of everybody. Not in terms of his goal scoring necessarily, because once again, I think they're more clinical. And Robbie Fowler, for me, in terms of left foot, right foot, headers, tap-ins. But who would you rather have in your team as your number 9 to help the team, as well as scoring goals? He's ahead of everyone.
Give us an insight. He was talking there about Kenny. Kenny would communicate with him before the game. This is what you need to do. Would you have that relationship with him as a player as well?
No, because and that's where Peter. I remember when Rushy left and Peter came and he was going to play with Aldo. I remember Kenny taking, because all Kenny used to do. Because if you think about Liverpool's team, it was a fantastic team. But of course, Rush and Dalglish were the ones who were going to score the goals. He had hard-working players. And so all Kenny did was and as Rushy says, turn around and look to play Rushy in. Now, when Peter came and Aldo was there and Aldo's a different type of player, Peter was doing to do different things. He wanted to play to me, he'd play to midfield, he'd play different things. And I remember Kenny taking him out and going, listen, when you get the ball, where Rushy had come back, just look to turn and help the ball on. And Peter was like, well, I want to pass the Barnes and stuff like that. So they had this bit of a thing whereby, because all Kenny did, and that's why Rushy loved him, was just look for Rushy every single time. That's all. I mean, he did other things, don't get me wrong, scoring goals and bringing people into play. But from the goal scoring point of view, Rush and Dalglish were, that was what it was all about.
OK, this is the big moment then. 2 names to go, and second on the all-time list that voted for by 1.4 million fans is...
Ken Dalglish, the man who this week cost the European champions a British record transfer fee. A brilliant strike by Dalglish. With Dalglish. Oh, the goal! What a start for Liverpool! Did that nicely. Dalglish! Playing in. Dalglish!
Beautiful turn.
Supreme. Dalglish is through. Kenny Dalglish. Across the base for the goal.
This lot didn't know, by the way, so there was genuine surprise in the studio.
Well, I mean, only from previous years, it's always been Kenny first, Stephen 2 type of thing. I thought that's what it was going to be, but of course, as you say, you can't choose between them. And for me, as an individual player, Steven Gerrard is the best. And he played at a time when it was all about him, whereas Kenny played in a great team with great players. So that's how his legacy lasts, because he has just been an incredible footballer. So I thought it was, and I wouldn't put Kenny above Stephen or Stephen above Kenny, because I don't like all of this anyway, but which I don't. Because it is a bit of a shock, to be honest with you, only because historically what I've known since I've been at Liverpool, even up until maybe last year, that it was always Kenny and Stephen. So it's not surprising the reality of who's better, and Stephen has a bigger impact because he was just the main player and Kenny had all the good players around him. But it's a bit of a shock, I must admit.
I think that's the biggest thing. I said before, I don't know how you split these 3, but that's the biggest thing. I think Neil alluded to it before as well. I think he's in a scene which is widely regarded as not being littered with stars or whatever. We're the most successful, and he had to pull them up by his socks every game he played. So that's why he shone more. But I agree with you, it's a bit of a shock, and that's no detriment to whatever, you know what I mean? But again, how would you split them? And I'm just so pleased that it's come down to these 3, because
I'm really surprised. It's gone Stephen over Kenny. I am genuinely very surprised when I found out. I was really shocked. And the public have spoken, and the public don't get everything right.
I think when you think about Kenny, you have to go beyond his impact as a footballer as well. Obviously, the management spells, the successful one at the first time, but the second time around, when he really was needed, he needed the club. The club needed him to kind of drag them out of the mire that they got themselves into, and he just appeared at Old Trafford as like beacon of hope. Look, forget what's gone before, we can still go forward, and he did take the team forward there. And it's funny because there's going to be so much talk about demographics of the voters and how much people have really seen of these players. Kenny was someone who I never saw live as a footballer, but I could tell you all about his highlights because I saw them again and again and again. I had one little VHS video which was the greatest ever Liverpool side from like 1991, and all of the Kenny clips in that are etched into my mind, and I'm sure that there's a whole generation of people just like me who have seen all of those Kenny goals and they know them like as if they had seen them for real.
I just saw the Asif Kapadia film about Kenny, and that's one of the reasons why I'm additionally surprised I haven't watched that film. Yeah, we can talk about the other stuff, the management and the very, everything he's done for the city in so many different ways, including with his family. We can talk about that bit. But the Asif Kapadia film, I came away from it going, I thought I knew how good he was at football. Yeah. It is mind-boggling how good he was at football.
But I have to tell you, if you just talk, because here we got 4 criteria, the legacy, all the impact, and the social aspect, social aspects, everything like that, yeah? If I was just talking about a footballer, there's one footballer, forget about playing with a team, as an individual footballer who can dribble, pass, head, tackle, skillful, blah, 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 I'll put Steven Gerrard number 1 in terms of being able to be a complete footballer, more complete than any other player, soon as Dalglish. But this is not what this is. This is about the impact, which is what surprises me. If it's about who's the best player, forget about anything else, just as a footballer who's able to do everything on a football field, Steven Gerrard would be number 1.
Yeah, I'd go along with that. In terms of being a figurehead and a statesman for the club, I think Kenny is number 1 for what he's given off the pitch, on the pitch, playing manager, decorated player. But in terms of being specifically a football player, Steven Gerrard was a tour de force of a footballer, wasn't he? Regardless of how good the team was around him at any given year, really, he was just an incredible footballer.
Yeah, I'm not that shocked, because I just think, when I think of watching Kenny live, I think about 85, 86, the iconic goal at Stamford Bridge that wins the title. But of course, that's the tail end of Kenny as a player. And I'm 48, so anyone younger than that doesn't remember Kenny certainly from his prime years. Well, we all remember Steven Gerrard carrying Liverpool Football Club for so many years. And what was he, 17 years as a senior player? You think he was never blessed with the kind of teammates that Kenny had around him. He dragged Liverpool kicking and screaming over the line in the biggest of games, the biggest stages, Istanbul. You think of the iconic FA Cup final against West Ham. So it's such a tough call, but I think it's the right one.
I didn't have a chance to watch Kenny playing, of course, but I was actually his player. Yeah. And I can tell you, was probably my best year with the Liverpool shirt was under him. And just the way he was with me, and what a great guy, and of course the numbers, and I had the chance to play with Stevie for many years. And for me, Stevie is probably one of the best, if not the best player I've played with, in club-wise for sure. You can debate in the national team. I had the privilege to play with so many Brazilian players. But it's really hard to pick one. And of course, maybe the younger guys will go for Stevie, the older guys will go for Kenny, but them two should be together, right up there. There is no
I'll save you for Stevie, Chloe, because I know you're a huge fan. Where stats are concerned, let's get back to Opta Mike on this one, because he was silver-plated, Kenny Dalglish, just synonymous with success, as this set of numbers will bear out to.
Yeah, no Liverpool player in history has been involved in more title-winning seasons than Kenny Dalglish, which, to be fair, will probably surprise nobody in the panel and nobody watching. His level here with Phil Neal and level with Alan Hansen. Okay, he had one more season, but yeah, it just shows the period of success that he had as a player, and then continued it on as a manager. And of course, some of these were as player manager as well. These titles, it's worth pointing out. And yeah, unfortunately I'm not old enough to have got to enjoy watching Kenny Dalglish live at the time, but as Mo said, I've seen the highlights and what an incredible player he was. I grew up with the Steven Gerrard era and watching that, so I think it is really hard to pick between the two from my point of view, because I'd never saw Kenny play live, but the fact that he was just such a crucial part. We saw earlier that he had the best win rate of any Liverpool player in that era. So I think that tells you that he was probably the most key component of the most successful Liverpool team.
Thank you, Mike. And of course, it was the smallest margin of votes as well between everybody that waded in on it. So there's only one place to go. We all know who's number 1, so enjoy this.
Fresh-faced teenager Steven Gerrard. Gerrard is going all the way. What a brilliant goal!
Real chance for Steven Gerrard. It's true.
Steven Gerrard, great effort! What a wonderful goal by Gerrard! For Gerrard, you beauty! It was Gerrard! Hello! Gerrard! It is Gerrard. Oh, he's done it for Liverpool! The FA Cup is back in Liverpool hands. Liverpool are champions of Europe again!
And if you wanted to commemorate the top 10 as voted for by the 1.4 million that we've mentioned a few times already, then it is available via the Liverpool website for you to hang on your wall. Some brilliant players on there. The top 20, I should say, not the top 10 of Liverpool greats. So, Steven Gerrard is number one, and sadly he couldn't be here, but we did get his reaction to today's vote. Let's take a look at this.
You are top.
Wow. Well, I feel very flattered and honoured, but because, I mean, I think people have maybe recency bias, as it's called, where have played in the recent generations, if you like, but there's been some incredible players before me and after me, so extremely flattered and humbled. Thank you.
I think one of the things that's come out of the process as well of doing it is how lucky he's been as a club. Like when you look through the list and when you see,
we've had unbelievable players, teams. I think sometimes, and I do it more now since I've retired, you sit back and realise who you've played for, how lucky we are to be part of this club and the family and stuff. Yeah, I appreciate it even more now than when I played. But yeah, I mean, wow, I didn't expect that, by the way. I didn't expect that.
The fans obviously love you, that goes without saying, you know that anyway, but it being a fan vote as well as that extra.
Look, I think the feeling from my side is mutual. The fans made me, if you like. I couldn't have been the player that I was. I wouldn't have had the career that I had without the support that I had every 3-4 days playing football. But to be recognised by fellow players during my career and win awards, they always felt special, but to be honoured by the supporters is even extra special, I would say, because they're the ones that watch you closely every single game. So yeah, that feels special.
One extra little wind up in your pocket for Kenny as well, mate. Have you seen Kenny as
No, listen. Kenny's my king. He's my number one. When I first started watching Liverpool players, it was on VHSs and DVDs, and it was Kenny Dalglish, it was Souness, it was all them players that made and built this club. When you become a professional, you take the baton off them guys. Obviously, a bit later on, your Johnny Barneses and them type of players, and you've got to look after it while you're here, and that's what I try to do. I try to be the best version of myself and try to add to the wonderful history and the great players before, but I'll never ever sit here or compare myself to Kenny Dalglish or try and widen them up. I leave the jokes and the banter to Kenny.
Classy as ever, Steven Gerrard.
You know, a more interesting conversation is Gerrard, Lampard and Scholes and people like that. It's about the best player. And why I say I put Steven ahead is because when you take an individual player and you say, can he defend? Can he dribble? Can he pass? If you ask him to play as a number 6, he'll be the best number 6. As a number 8, he'll be the best number 8. Whereas Scholes is a good attacking midfield player and Lampard. So for me, as a complete footballer, midfield player, because as I mentioned, Alan Hansen, Ronnie Whelan, but as a midfield player, he had everything. Everything.
He was always going to get your vote, wasn't he, Steven Gerrard?
Yeah, I won't lie to you. Sorry, Kenny. Don't watch this. No, for me, he was my idol. I didn't get to see the greatest or his prime years at Liverpool, but he was still my idol. A Scouser, someone who I could symbolise with as being a Scouser who understood what it meant to be a Liverpool fan first and foremost, and then play for the badge. You know, gave us absolutely everything, dragged Liverpool, put Liverpool on his back in so many games of football. You know, and yeah, he was the greatest there was, the greatest there is, and the greatest there ever will be for me. I think that was the banner on the Kop on his final game, and I was lucky enough to hear, you know, how he reacted and his speech on that final game. But a player who could do everything, had the skill, had the quality, had the tenacity, had the aggression. You know, if he was annoyed, you'd know about it because he probably got a red card. And sometimes it was, you know, quite quickly after coming on in a situation if he wasn't happy being on the bench. But without a shadow of a doubt, you know, for me, if I think of Liverpool, it is the two greats in King Kenny and Steven Gerrard. And yeah, just what an incredible player, and the best thing I can say is he should have won a lot more. He deserved to win a lot more than what he did at Liverpool, but he chose to be loyal and to stay in the end. He could have gone to absolutely anywhere in this world, in Europe, and he could have been their best player, and that's how good of a player he was.
What comes out of that, Paul, even through all the success and being top of that, the humility out the guy.
Yeah.
The humility out the guy, I'm thinking. And we spoke about this for the last couple of hours. It's gone to all these players, to our football club. It's what makes us unique, and he's being crowned the top of our fantastic football club. All the success, all the skills, but what comes out is that sense of humility, and that's what drives us on. Fantastic.
We've spoken at length, haven't we, about each player's credentials, the longevity, the success, the ability, and he had it all, didn't he? The only one thing missing, obviously, was the Premier League title, but, Champions League winner, FA Cup, that incredible season 25 years ago when he's an amazing talent in that treble-winning team under Gerard Houllier. He just had everything you wanted from football. If you could build a footballer in a lab, he'd come out like Steven Gerrard.
Yeah. I remember Jamie Carragher saying that, I think it was around the time that Steven left Liverpool, said his greatest strength is he had no weakness. And I think that summed it up perfectly. Really, you could play him anywhere. When he played at right back then, and he was he was the best right back you could hope for. The best defensive midfielder, best attacking midfielder. You think of the combination with Torres, where you stuck him out on the right, where obviously he preferred to be more central, but he was the best right-sided midfielder as well. He just, if you were building all the components of an elite footballer, you would have created Steven Gerrard.
And he had so much pressure from the very first time he appeared in the team. I think the difference between him and someone like Kane Dalglish has been a fantastic footballer for Celtic when he arrived at Liverpool. Everyone already knew he was the top player. We got to see him grow from a great prospect into an exciting youth player, and then, as Paul mentioned, in that treble-winning season when he's first starting to really make an impact and find his feet, then when he first became captain under Gerard Houllier, leading the team to Istanbul with Rafa Benitez, and just getting better and better and adding more and more to his game, we got to see the whole arc of the career, from the kind of the promise to the success to the foundations that he then laid for the future in the team that was around him as he left.
You have to say, Kenny coming in was under a lot of pressure to replace Kevin Keegan.
Yes.
However, he's coming to a great team.
Yeah.
So as much as he was under probably even more pressure than Stephen when Stephen got into the side, because to replace Kevin Keegan was going to be impossible, but he had the players around him to be able to cope with that. But as you say, Stephen was really the team.
The other thing with that is that you mentioned with the other two in Paul Scholes and Frank Lampard, they had far better teams and teammates around them.
As Kenny did.
Exactly, and it's one of them where could they have done what Steven Gerrard did for Liverpool if they were dropped into Liverpool's midfield at the time? I don't think they could have, and that's why I put Gerrard above.
It was the versatility, as we said before, in numerous positions, and wherever he was alluded to by the guys, and you said before, whichever position he was in, he was the best.
Not only was
right
the best,
back, midfield, left centre. Honestly, he was.
Not only was the best, he was humble enough to do it willingly. Because you can ask people to do things and they say, "Okay, I'm going to do it, but I don't really want to do it because I'm the main player." Yeah. I remember when Sir Alex Ferguson was asking Wayne Rooney to play out of position at times, and he did the same thing willingly. Now, Steven Gerrard, he used to say, "I'm Steven Gerrard. Well, I'm going to play right back," but he wouldn't. He just wouldn't do it as a right back.
I was going to mention that because I think I played with him 7 years. I think something like that, 8 years, and I said before, for me, he's the best that I played, for sure. He's a complete player, but also very humble, because he got in a period that was sometimes very difficult, but every 3 days he was, accepting that he needed to do more and do something different. So that's what makes him, the greatest, I think,
Just on that as well, let's get back to Mike on that, because that is a key part of it. What Lucas says there, he was ready to play every 3 days, and nobody betters him in terms of the amount of starts as a captain where that's concerned.
Yeah, that's the sort of stat to me that stands out with him is he has the most starts as captain in Liverpool's history. 470 times captain the team above Ron Yates there in 417. And he did just lead the club for so many years through good times and through more difficult times. But he was just an ever-present, a constant there. He scored in the League Cup final, an FA Cup final, Champions League final, and a UEFA Cup final, and he's actually the only player in history to do that, by the way, to score in all 4 of those finals. So he was a moment player, and he carried Liverpool through so many moments. The 2006 FA Cup final is known as the Gerrard final. He got 2 goals, and an assist for Liverpool that day. Played at right back that day as well, filled in at the end as he did in the Champions League final. So yeah, obviously I grew up watching him, and he just, I think I can only echo what everyone said about what he did for the team and the humility he did it with, and he sort of, everything that a Liverpool supporter wanted a player to be, he was, and the fact that he was the captain for so many years as well, he embodied everything that Liverpool was about, and so I think that's why he's a very worthy number one.
Thank you, Mike. Some absolute crackers in there where the stats were concerned today. We appreciate that, and we appreciate all of you in the studio as well.
Can I finish with one thing?
Yeah, go on. Always.
8 years from now, they're going to be sitting here doing this. They're going to get to number 92. There's going to be someone called Steven Gerrard.
And you come back and do it again for us.
I can guarantee that.
It's been great to spend some time with you, James, Paul. Thank you, Mo and Neil as well, Chloe, and of course our 3 former Liverpool players in Sammy, John and Lucas.
Thank you.
Great to see you.
Alpha
Thank you for watching at home as well. The top Liverpool player in the 100 vote, as voted for by you, is Steven Gerrard. Bye-bye.
Salah for Liverpool! Incredible feat by Mohamed Salah, and he goes on! Oh my word!
And rushes on the far side. Is this 3? It is!
And Ian Rush breaks the Liverpool goal.